Let me ask you a question. Do you ever wonder why sometimes when you're talking to one person, you walk away from that conversation and you're like, man, I just seem to get along. We just seem to hit it off. Then you talk to someone else and you're like, I cannot understand that person. They are driving me crazy. Do you ever wonder what that is and how that happens, right? When you're in business, anything you do in life in general, you have to get along and communicate to be successful. Let's face it, the most successful people on the planet and the highest paid people on the planet are communicators. If you don't understand the skill of communicating and understand how you can communicate better with people, you will never reach your ultimate success. Now, there's different personality profiles, and I'm going to talk about these because I think it's so important that you understand the different personalities when it comes to understanding different people. So I have learned, and I'm very familiar with what's called DISC profiling. So DISC is D, I, S, and C. The DISC profile is so important, and I can tell you as a person of influence and someone who's out in the world, you've got to know who you're talking to, you've got to know your audience, and you've got to relate to them. And the way that you relate to them is on a subconscious level, which means it's not even talking, it's how you communicate with them. When you communicate, 55% of what you say is through body language, 33% is through tonalities, meaning the way you say it, and only 7% of effectiveness is through your words. So if you're someone that thinks that you can write it out and you can just get through to people, you're wrong, you're mistaken, and you will not get through to certain people. Now, everybody on the planet is some form of DISC. You're either a D, you're an I, you're an S, or you're a C, or you're some variation of DISC. The challenge that you need to understand is if you are only talking to people that are the same DISC profile of you, so let's say you are a D, and I'll explain what those are in a minute, you only resonate with people that are Ds. If you're an I, you only resonate with Is, which means that 75% of the population you don't relate to. Now, if you are doing sales or communication or a business or anything, how does that work when you can only relate to and communicate with 25% of the people out there? You're losing 75% of effectiveness of communicating and money if you don't understand this one simple rule. So if you leave here with anything today, understand what the different DISC profiles are and understand how you can communicate with them, because that is going to be the key for you being successful. So when you have a D, that is a dominant person. They're very matter of fact, they're to the point, they are very, very abrupt, and they get to the point when you're talking to them. Normally when you talk to a D, they talk in bullet points, and they are very matter of fact, short word, basically 1 or 2 word answers. So you may send someone a text message, this long love letter of information, and they answer back, yes. And you're kind of like, yes to which one? I've asked you 5 different things. That's a D, right? They don't like conformity. They like their own rules. They like to do what they want to do, and they don't want to be told how things should be done, right? So normally a D is going to be a president, maybe the CEO of a company. There's someone who's out in front and they're very matter of fact. And if there's an argument or a fight going on, you know you're going to stand behind them because they are going to win. No doubt about it. So that is a D. An I is someone who's very influential. They're very chatty, they're social, they're kind of the life of the party, right? They always come up with great ideas and they talk in big, colorful words. This is an amazing house. It's so beautiful. You're gonna love the way you feel with this. They're very charismatic. That is an I. Maybe they go to lunch and they have a 3-hour lunch with someone because they've never met a stranger. That's an I. They walk into a room, everybody knows them. They light up the room. That's an I. Normally, a salesperson is going to be an I. They're very charismatic. They don't really like to follow rules. They don't like routines. They like to do things, and they like spontaneous, and they like spontaneity. So you can always tell an I by those things. They're just chatty, they're happy, they're bubbly, they do things spontaneously, and again, that's an I. Now you have an S. An S is someone who's very emotional. Sentimental is the S, right? So they talk in auditory tones about how they feel. They wear their sleeve on their vest. They talk about feelings. So they talk about, I don't like the way he spoke to me. Imagine a D who's the CEO of a company walking into an office, and a secretary, who a lot of times is an S, or a front office admin, starts talking to them about their grandkids and their weekend and how beautiful it was. And the D, who's the CEO, walks in and just says, good morning, and walks right past them. They're going to get upset. The S is going to get their feelings hurt. So now you have to be in this feeling, in this happy-go-lucky, kumbaya thing. And the D is like, I just said good morning. And you know what the S says? It's how you said it. You were rude to me the way you talked to me. Because the S is very in tune with the tonality of how you say things. Normally, they don't like to go against there's a popular opinion of how things are done, and they don't like going against that popular opinion. So if something's going on and the group says they're doing it, they will go along and do it just because they don't want to be the one who says no. A D would be like, no, we're not doing this. An S would do it, but they may voice their opinion later on in private. And lastly, you have a C. C is conforming. Someone who is a C is very data driven. They talk in 5 to 6 pages of emails. One spreadsheet is not enough for them. They want 5 to 6 spreadsheets. They want the data. To them, the data and the numbers make sense because that is logic to them. So again, they're the kind of people that maybe you go to a car dealership and they say, hey, page 54 is wrong because the wheelbase is 58 inches, not 63 inches. And the salesperson's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. That is a C. They're very data driven. So imagine a D salesperson giving a one-word answer to a C client where they want data and data and data. It doesn't work. So my point is that when you're talking to people, you really need to understand who you're talking to, and you need to realize that how you can relate to them. Because even though you're a D, if you're talking to a C, you need to talk to them in their language. You need to talk in data and numbers and analytics. Otherwise, you're not going to get along, and you're not going to maybe have the sale. You're not going to get them as a client, or you're not going to keep them as a client because of how you're dealing with it. So just remember, you have a D, you have an I, you have an S, and you have a C. Anything you do in life, whether you're talking to your child, your spouse, your business partner, a potential client, doesn't matter. You've got to learn DISC, and you've got to learn personalities, and you always have to make sure that if you want to be the one who wins the game, meaning gets the sale, gets them as a client, gets the date, whatever it is, you've got to ask them in their language. So remember, DISC profiling is the key. If you want to know more, subscribe and like this channel. Leave me a comment if you've never done DISC, and I'd love to hear from you. This is Steve Rozenberg. We'll talk to you later.